our wish that you get to live the life of your dreams. Of course, this goes out to our graduates today. It goes out to all of us as well, all of us who are bravely living through this chaotic time. Tomorrow's Memorial Day. And Memorial Day, we honor those who gave their life in service to our country. So this week, Kevin and I watched a movie about a young man who lived his dream, who wanted to sign up for the armed services when he was in high school, and his parents wouldn't give him permission. So when he was 18 and able to make that decision on his own, he did join, and he joined the Air Force, and his name was William Pitzenbarger. Maybe some of you have heard of him. He was a young man who wanted to become a pararescueman, someone who goes down into the heat of battle by parachute or from helicopter and goes into battle to help the wounded that are in the middle of combat. The movie that we watched is based on his life, and it's called The Last Full Measure. It's on Amazon. It was a great movie. And it's about all those people who later years after this event shared the goodness of this young man. His nickname was Pitts. Shared the goodness of Pitts. Pitts went down into a battle in 1966 in April, Vietnam, and helped many who were wounded and airlifted them up into the helicopter so that they could get the care that they needed. And when the helicopters came back for him, it was a very heated battle. He waved them on and decided to stay. And as a result, there were about 60 more people, young men, who survived the battle because of his bravery. And when he could no longer help the wounded, he picked up a gun and started fighting himself and lost his life during that battle. The story in the movie is all about him afterwards, the people that were affected by his life afterwards. He received the Air Force Cross after he passed. And the people who were involved in this battle with him, his friends, thought he deserved a higher honor than that he deserved the Medal of Honor, the highest honor that you can get in the military. And so for 35 years, they worked on getting him that Medal of Honor. It's a tremendous story, and in the story, throughout the movie, we see different people whose lives were affected by Pitts and how they saw the goodness in him, how they saw the bravery in him. It's such an honor to look for the goodness in someone. It honors life. It honors their life. And so that's today what we're talking about. Is we're still working with Tara Brock's book, Radical Compassion. And this week we're in week 6 of our 7-week program, and the chapter this week is Seeing the Goodness. And what better way to honor life than to look for the goodness in everyone, to look for the goodness in ourselves. It honors life. But it can be challenging because we don't always see that. We see what's on the surface. And we're all going through this pandemic times and experiencing it in different ways. This week, Kevin and I decided to paint our kitchen cabinets. If you've been in my house, you know that we have these dark espresso cabinets in our kitchen, and we want to brighten it up, and so we're going to paint the cabinets white. Little did we know that there are hundreds of different shades of white. It's crazy. Trying to get just the right shade of white is really challenging. But it reminded me of how, yes, we're all going through this pandemic, but we all are experiencing it a little differently. It could be a slight difference, like in the shades of white, but it's different for each of us because we each come from different backgrounds and different experiences and different sets of beliefs. And mostly, I read a great article this week that Carolyn Richardson shared with me on grieving and how that restlessness that we're feeling is really grief. And we all grieve differently as well. This article was by Scott Birinato from the Harvard Business Review, called "That Discomfort You're Feeling is Grief." And in the article, he interviewed David Kessler, who's renowned expert on grief. He worked with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and wrote some books on grief and has studied grief for a number of years. And in the interview, he talks about, David Kessler talks about how we are all in different stages of that grief. You know, if you've read the 5 stages of grief, he mentions that there are 5 stages of it. We have denial, we have bargaining, we have sadness, we have anger, and we have acceptance. And David likes to say that beyond the acceptance, and acceptance is a great place to be, but we also, as humans, want to give it meaning. We want to give this grief meaning. We want to give this time meaning. And he talks about this type of grief that we're experiencing right now. He calls it anticipatory. I don't know if I can say this. Anticipatory grief. Thank you, Janice. Anticipatory grief. This grief that we have of the unknown, of the what's yet to come. We're grieving that we don't have control over our lives. He says this in the article. Anticipatory grief is that feeling we get about what the future holds when we're uncertain. Our primitive mind knows something bad is happening, but you can't see it. This breaks our sense of safety. We're feeling that loss of safety. I don't think we've collectively lost our sense of general safety like this. Individually or as smaller groups, people have felt this. But altogether, this is new. We are grieving on a micro and macro level. Is that what you've been feeling? Can you resonate with that? And granted, some people maybe aren't grieving right now. Some people maybe are feeling pretty good and staying home and doing home projects and doing things that lights them up and makes them feel alive. But a good number of us are not feeling so great about what's going on, or feeling this level of grief. And so it goes on in the article to talk about what it needs is it calls us to stay present. This type of grief needs us to stay present. How do we stay present? Well, we can take 10 deep breaths. We can notice things in the room and notice their texture. And he says it really calls for an abundance of compassion, which is what we're studying here at Columbine with this book by Tara Brach, Radical Compassion. We're not all experiencing this in the same way. But we are, many of us, most of us, I would say, are grieving at some level. Our seniors this year, some of us are grieving for them. Maybe they are grieving as well, their parents certainly, in that they don't get to participate in these rites of passage that seniors normally get to participate in. Prom and commencement and all the graduation parties and all the things that happen in a senior year that our seniors don't get to do this year. We can grieve that. We can look for other ways of celebrating with them. Eileen talked about seeing through a spiritual lens. We need to expand the way we look at this. And she talked about how she went into YOU as a sponsor thinking that she was going to teach, but what she really learned was how to be. How do we want to be during this time? She got a lot more meaning than she expected, I think, out of YOU. And so we want to introduce you to our two YOU graduates this year by showing a short video clip of them. We're so proud of them. We honor them. They have been in YOU and been through a transition that we had in YOU a couple years ago, and they stuck it out, and they attended rallies, and they did some deep work. At the rallies, they do deep work, heartfelt work. And it's a beautiful thing to witness them grow into these young men that they've become. And so we're going to show short videos of Brett and Jackson, and we're going to start with Brett. So let's show Brett's video.
We light this candle to represent the Christ light in all of us. Even if the candle goes out, we know that this light burns brightly within each and every one of us. Having been in YOU has made me a better person and taught me to be more caring towards others. I've learned to live life to the fullest and to just be happy. YOU has always been a place for me to escape from the rest of the world. It gave me an opportunity to be with friends and to talk about life. It also gave me the chance to learn from others about how they see the world. I'm truly grateful to have YOU in my life, and I will never forget it. Thank you.
We are so glad to have Brett be with us these last few years. And I love that he talks about how he lit a candle, and he talks about that light within, that Christ light within. It's so important. It's such an important thing to get, especially as a teenager, to get that light, no matter what, never goes out. He's so right. If the candle goes out, the light within never goes out. It's a beautiful thing to witness somebody come into that awareness of that. Tara Brock talks about that basic goodness. That light within is that basic goodness, which she talks about in chapter 9. She says this on pages 172 to 173. Basic goodness is the gold of our true nature, the universal qualities of awareness, aliveness, love, creativity, and intelligence that live through all of us. Our changing moods, behaviors, and personalities are like surface waves. Basic goodness is the ocean itself. If we remain focused on our conditioned patterns, if we judge or identify with these patterns, we can easily miss our vastness and depth. I love that analogy of the ocean. That what we are really, what we are created in, is that depth, that ocean, not the surface waves, not the changing behaviors, not the stuff that happens on a day-to-day basis, but what's within us. Like Brett talks about, that inner light is always there. And he got that on a deep level. Usually when we have a graduation for our YOU every year, we have a big card that our community can go out into our Foss Hall and sign and give good wishes to our graduates. And I'm sure they love reading all those wishes later on. So I want to invite you right now to write some good wishes for Brett. Honor him. Honor his accomplishment. And honor the goodness that's in him. Honor the life that is coming alive through him. That life that is just starting out, as Stacy sung about the dream. We wish that you live the life of your dream. So write in the chat box, and Brett knows that this is going to happen, and I'm sure his mom is going to love reading those as well. But write some good wishes to Brett. Richard Rohr talks about in his blog this week, I get his blog every week, and he talks about how humans are the only species on the planet of all of life that can choose. We can choose what we do and what we don't do. It was really interesting to look at it from this perspective, that birds can't choose not to fly, or to build nests, or to lay eggs, just as snakes can't choose not to crawl on the ground. Trees can't choose not to grow and reach towards the sun. But we can choose how we're going to behave, what we're going to do, what we're not going to do. And he said it's a great display of love these last couple months that we chose to not go out, that we chose to stay home, that we choose to wear masks when we do go out, that we choose to protect the vulnerable. We choose to protect other people by wearing a mask. It's a great display of love, and it shows our basic goodness, that basic goodness that's in all of us. We have choices. We always have choices. How to think and how to behave and what to say. And our next young man, whose video I want to show you, is Jonathan Erb, and I'm sorry, not John, John's the dad, Jackson Erb, who's been in YOU, and he talks about these changes and these choices. So let's show Jackson's video now.
Hey, for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Jackson, and I'll be graduating from YOU this year. Going into high school as a freshman wasn't that much of a shock for me. It was kind of just another school for me with some familiar faces from the past. I was pretty used to it. Everything was decently normal after starting the year until Winter Rally came around. After a lot of hesitation, I decided to go to my first rally. But after the fact, I knew that I would never regret going to that rally. Personally, I got most of the stuff I learned from YOU out of the rallies I went to, mainly because there was a lot of material to take in, and there were little to no distractions from the outside world. That was pretty important to me. And there was this talk that would only happen once at each rally, and that was called Heart Talk. And I quickly realized how much this talk's helped me. The whole idea of Heart Talk was that anyone was welcome to share things that were very deep or heavy on their heart. And I took advantage of this and shared at almost every single Heart Talk. And I think I went to at least 5 or 6 rallies. Looking back on all the things I shared, there was actually a common theme of change and how it was affecting me. And I learned that change happens. And no matter how it affected how I view myself, I knew it was okay. Change happens. It's a part of life. And I learned that I shouldn't focus on the past or the negative possibilities ahead. Instead, I should start to look at the future and think, what will this look like and how can I adapt? Recently, I had a lot of change in my life like everyone else with this virus. I had made a huge effort to be able to go to Italy and cook in Bologna. But instead of dwelling on the possibility that I decided to look elsewhere. And I saw the opportunity to enroll at a culinary school in Boulder. I think without YOU helping me with the changes in my life, I would have kept looking at the possibility of what could have been instead of what could be. And that's how YOU has already been so impactful in my life. And I don't see any way it won't stop helping me at all.
Wow, so we honor Jackson for the mature young man that he has grown into and for his awareness that change is just part of life. And I love how he said, focus on what, instead of what could have been, and focus instead on what could be, looking for the possibilities. We see great possibilities for you too, Jackson, both of you, you and Brett. And if you'd like to send some best wishes or blessings or congratulations to Jackson, please write in the chat box now for him. It's a great honor to recognize our youth, to recognize who they've become and who they're becoming, and all that they've learned. But seeing that aliveness in them, seeing that awareness of that Christ presence within them, it's just a beautiful, wonderful thing to witness. And we get to do that here in this community. And we congratulate both of them for graduating from high school and going forward with their lives in different directions. There's been a variety of emotions, a variety of levels of grief. A lot of us are experiencing different things, and I include myself in that category of a wide variety of emotions. And any of you that have gone through a grieving process, probably most of us have grieved at some point in our lives, you know it's not linear. You don't go through the steps and then say, oh, I'm done. It goes on, and it jumps around. And one minute you could be sad, and the next minute you could be angry, and the next minute you could be denying that it's even happening. And then we can accept and find meaning. But if you're like me, it's been challenging. It's been challenging because there doesn't seem to be any end to it just yet. There's no safety. And it can feel like, I'm done with this. Have you said that to yourself? I've said that to myself. I've heard other people say it. I'm done with this. I'm done with this. But you know what? As long as we are breathing, life isn't done with us. Life is still wanting to express through us and as us. We're here. We're here in this lifetime, in this challenging time. We need to honor that life. And as both young men talked about escaping, we need to go to a place where we can get away from the distractions of the world, to come into that knowing presence of that divine essence of us. Honor that life. Honor that life is longing to express through us and as us. And in order to do that, a lot of times we have to release something. I was talking to my spiritual director this week, and it's always a good phone call when I'm talking to her. And I was saying how I'm done with this now. This life is just not fun anymore. And we talked about how life is not done with me. So she asked me this question, and I ask it of you. What can you release to make room for the life that is longing to come through you? Because it needs room. It needs room to express. What can you release to honor that life you've been given? And how can we see the good that's in each of us? I know for me, I need to release my need to be right, my need to control, my need to know. That probably says it all right there. And relax into the unknowing. The unknowing, where spirit is, where possibilities lie. What do you need to release? If you want to share that in the chat box, if you're on Facebook with us, please do that. Help others see that we're all experiencing this. Remember, different boat, but same storm. We're all in this storm together. And know that if we're feeling depleted or overwhelmed, that we can't possibly give to others. We need to come from a place of overflow. It's one thing to know intellectually that we are loved and that we are okay, but we need to feel it too. We need to feel that. And so it's a practice. We have to practice coming into that feeling of being loved so that then we can see the goodness and we can see the goodness in others. Not always easy. Takes practice. Tara says on page 182, becoming a mirror of goodness is a deliberate training in radical compassion. When we're in trance, preoccupied, anxious, reactive, on autopilot, we're often blind to the goodness of others. Instead, we fixate on what we don't like, what seems wrong. If we want to become clear and nurturing mirror to others, we need first to be conscious, present, and intentional. Can you feel the truth of that statement? We can't see the goodness even in ourselves when we're anxious or fearful or sad. So it's a practice. She talks about a tribe in South Africa. There's a story of the Babima tribe in South Africa by Alice Walker on page 175 of our book. And this practice, whenever somebody does something that is hurtful or irresponsible within the community, very tight-knit community, instead of some kind of punishment, that person is put in the center of town or in the center of the community, and the rest of the people in the community surround that person. Everything else stops. And one by one, they remind that person of their goodness. They tell them in as much detail as possible all the good that they see in them. We have a saying in Unity that we're not punished for our sins, we're punished by our sins. Meaning, there's no God out there that's punishing us when we miss the mark, when we do something wrong, when we do something hurtful or irresponsible to someone else. But we punish ourselves when we come into awareness of it, when we're reminded of the good beings that we are. And in this tribe, in this practice, it touches me. Can you imagine? Can you imagine doing something irresponsible and hurtful and then have people tell you how good you are? What a great reminder that we're all connected, that we're all one, that we're all good, innately loving and loved. It would make you think twice about doing something irresponsible or hurtful again, wouldn't it? I love that story because it's what we're called to do with each other. As challenging as it is, to mirror for each other the goodness that we see and let them know. Tara says on page 195, the essence of human bravery is refusing to give up on anyone. Assuming basic goodness helps us accept our own imperfections along with the flaws of others. No matter how buried in hatred, anger, or addiction someone may seem, goodness and the potential to awaken to it are always here. Trusting the gold is an intrinsic part of calling it forth. We need to know that that gold is within, no matter how covered up it might be with clay and with all of our stuff. Just like the ocean, the surface stuff, not so important when we look deep within. So I ask, who has seen the gold in you? And how did it affect your life? And is there someone in your life who needs you to mirror their goal? We have the ability to choose to honor life, to see the goodness. And it's a choice always well made. I want to invite you into a short time of reflection now, a time of meditation. This is coming from Tara Brach's book, Radical Compassion, on page 182. So I invite you to sit comfortably, close your eyes, and relax your body. Now, looking back through your life, bring to mind a person who had a positive influence on you. Ask yourself, when did they mirror something about me that helped me trust my goodness? As a memory arises, pause and allow yourself to appreciate them and feel how their words or actions nurtured you. And now bring to mind someone who could use your mirroring to see the good in them, to express to them the goodness that is there. Allow yourself to appreciate them, to see the depth of the ocean in them, to see the gold inside, the beauty, the goodness inside of them. And think of some way you can express that to them. Let them hear what you see. Let them feel what you feel for them. We can honor life by seeing the goodness.